Some say that you're an opportunist. What would you say to that?
I'd say that's too insulting to answer.
Okay.
We're here to wipe the town hall clock clean. Don't ask me to... It's just an idea you've got. Yeah. If my auntie had a beard, she'd be my uncle. The media's still 100% behind Israel.
This is what makes them racist.
Well, let's continue your metaphor. I don't know how you could possibly think that. Most of the crimes against the Palestinian people were carried out under the so-called Labour Party.
There was rumours that you are now Muslim.
MashaAllah. I mean, what are you looking for? Clickbait here?
Welcome to yet another podcast show. Before we kickstart our program, I would like to thank our official team behind the lens, SA Media. You can find them on all social platforms, and also we are proudly sponsored by Yano Cha. Today we have a special guest. He needs no introduction. He is a prominent British politician, George Galloway. He is standing in the by-election in Rochdale, and with the upcoming election there are a number of discussions, and we are privileged and honoured to have Mr. Galloway with us. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Welcome.
I think the first opening question for everyone in Rochdale is, why Rochdale? What has motivated you to come to Rochdale and stand in Rochdale?
Well, there's a by-election. If there hadn't been a by-election, we wouldn't be having this discussion. But I'm in Greater Manchester all the time. My daughter was born here. Two of my sons live here. For my sins, I'm a Manchester United supporter. I'm at every home game. So this is not foreign territory for me. As a matter of fact, the Labour candidate is more of an outsider here than me. Of course, it's my job as a politician to be involved in elections, and there's a by-election here. It might only be for 100 days, might be fewer than 100 days, might be 200 days at most, but for that period of time, at least you could say that Cristiano Ronaldo is offering to turn out for Rochdale FC at no cost at all to the club.
We'll take that. Some say that you're an opportunist. What would you say to that?
I'd say that's too insulting to answer.
Okay. In the 200 days or so that you may be elected, what do you think you can bring to Rochdale?
Well, the first thing I'll bring is the voice of the people of Rochdale on the subject of Gaza. Let's not pretend there's any other backdrop to this by-election. Right as we speak, there are children being massacred in a genocide, and nobody in Parliament is reflecting the feelings of millions of people up and down this country of outrage at the role played by our government and our so-called opposition in that genocide. So the first thing you'll see, 3 days after I go to Parliament at Prime Minister's questions, is me erupting like a volcano on the floor of the House of Commons to express that outrage. It's unconscionable that we can have so many millions of British people outraged at what's happening and nobody giving voice to it in the House of Commons. What kind of democracy is that? I'll be trying to restore some kind of civic pride to Rochdale, which has been allowed to slide. Indeed, the slide became a fall, a precipitate fall. I mentioned jokingly a minute ago Rochdale Football Club, but its fortunes are a metaphor for the town. It was a fixture of the Football League, and now it isn't in the league.
Absolutely.
And Rochdale isn't in the league. It has been left to slide, and now it's in free fall. And Rochdale needs someone with a bit of political pizzazz, with a voice that can be heard and is heard, listened to speak up for it on its multitude of problems, many of which, by the way, centre on the town hall. We're here to wipe the town hall clock clean. In metaphor, I'm not going to climb up the steeple and clean it myself, but I intend to make an impact on a town hall which is a byword for incompetence and even worse.
What about those? What we've had is we've got our own research team. Those who so at the moment you're targeting mainly what from the outside in, the Muslims and the pro-Palestinians. So the ones that feel, the ones we've spoken to, they feel as though the non-Muslims have not been addressed.
I don't know how you could possibly think that, or whoever.
That's what people have said.
Well, I don't know how they could possibly have said that. I am white, working class,
It's true,
British.
yeah.
So I'm actually in a better position than Azhar Ali to move amongst the white British working class. And I'm doing it every day. As a matter of fact, I've just been serving soup and curry to substantially white, poor clientele at the soup kitchen. Incidentally, served by and the food donated by Muslims. But most of the customers were not. So no, that's absolutely untrue. I, of course, have big support amongst the Muslim population here, and the Muslim population here is big, but I'm pursuing absolutely every vote in Rochdale.
Some say that given your pro-Palestinian stance, some views are borderline anti-Semitism. What would you say?
Well, what I would say is you're insulting me by saying that. Who are these some say that say this? I mean, what are you looking for? Clickbait here? Who are the people who are saying this? Because bring them and I'll sue them in the British courts.
Yeah.
Professor David Miller
Yes.
has just won a landmark
Absolutely.
legal case in which he has established in law for the first time that anti-Zionism is a protected characteristic. It is perfectly lawful to be anti-Zionist. It's perfectly unlawful to be anti-Semitic. And so it should be. So it should be to be Islamophobic. So it should be to be anti-Catholic. But to oppose Saudi Arabia isn't being Islamophobic.
But do you think they're trying to blur the line, the definition between anti-Semitic and anti-Zionism?
Yeah, that's how they destroyed Jeremy Corbyn. Jeremy Corbyn doesn't have a racist bone in his body.
If anybody knows anything what he's done,
Exactly.
And this is what we discussed off camera as well.
Yeah,
You know,
I've
Jeremy
known him
Corbyn.
for 40 years, Jeremy Corbyn. And the idea that he hates Jews is so absurd, so offensive.
the idea that people would believe that is worse.
Yeah, but I'm not sure they did believe it. It was weaponized. It was a scam to destroy Corbyn, and it worked.
Did you watch his interview on
Piers
Morgan? I felt like he was bullied.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch it because I wouldn't watch Piers Morgan.
Would you go on?
He was no.
You wouldn't go on.
He was hacking my telephone and had to pay me a large amount of compensation. He was hacking my telephone at the very time he was pretending to be my friend. So I definitely didn't watch it, but I did read all about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, Jeremy Corbyn was broken on the wheel.
Yeah.
This fake, fabricated scam that to be against Israel, which is now committing genocide in front of the whole world, was to be anti-Semitic. It's completely, utterly false, fake, and nobody should repeat it.
Do you not think you're up against such a big juggernaut where Corbyn was leader and he was wiped out? And And you are nowhere near that position.
Well, they haven't wiped me out yet, and I think you're going to find on the 29th of this month that they definitely haven't wiped me out yet, but I'm not afraid of them.
No.
Jeremy was too gentle in the face of this onslaught. I'm not like that.
Yes.
I don't turn the other cheek.
You went to the US, innit?
I did, and they never asked me back.
No.
I'm not afraid of them. I don't want anything from them, and nothing that matters to me can be taken away from me by them. I have a life's work behind me that I'm quite happy to rest upon. I'm always trying to get some bonus points. The big election on the Judgment Day, I've got sins to make up for, just like you and you and you. We're always trying to get that big vote, but there's nothing I want from them. I don't want a knighthood. I don't want money. I don't need to be better known. So I'm a free and independent man, and therefore I can say and do say exactly what I believe in. So juggernaut, it isn't. Look, I'm from an Irish background. There's a great Irish man called Jim Larkin who first raised these words: the great only appear to be great as long as the rest of us are on our knees. When we stand up, we discover that they ain't so great. And David Miller just proved that. He just proved it. MashaAllah.
There's a saying by George Carlin, the famous George Carlin. He said that politicians give you the illusion that you have a choice, but you don't. The elite make the decision. What would you say to that?
Well, the political class we've got, I claim credit for this quote myself, are two cheeks of the same arse. Or I'll say backside if that is too strong. They're two cheeks of the same backside. It's an illusion, as Carlin said. I've seen it. They seem to be full of sound and fury across the table in the House of Commons, but behind the Speaker's chair, they're backslapping and laughing all the way to the bank or the bar, most usually. He's right about that, and that's what we've got to change. But democracy can change things. On this day, remember it well, despite everything, Imran Khan has swept the elections in Pakistan. And that will pose very serious dilemmas for the army and for those who stand behind the army. So democracy can change things, and a big movement of people can change things. Otherwise, if you don't believe that, you might as well get down on your knees and be a slave. And I don't think many people are up for that.
So going back to Rochdale and itself, and those who are just mainly would elect you for the concerns that they have with Rochdale, what changes do you think you can make?
Well, I might only be here for a month, so do bear that in mind. But 12 weeks after this election, there's local council elections. And we intend to clean the town hall clock. So electing a member of parliament who may only be here for 100 days, less, little more, will not in itself, it won't put an extra potato on anybody's plate, but it will electrify the local community into believing that change is possible. And I intend to stay here and see that change through to a successful end. There's only two election pledges that I have made. One I've already explained to you on the subject of Gaza. And the other is to return maternity services to Rochdale. It is incredible, literally, in the literal meaning of the word, that you cannot be born in Rochdale. There will never again be anyone who can say they were born in Rochdale, unless, la samahallah, they are born in a taxi on its way to Oldham. And That is completely unacceptable. And the fact that Labour accepted it, indeed their people implemented it in the local health authority, is an everlasting shame to them.
The Labour candidate, as Mr. Azhar Ali, what would you say? Like, a lot of some Muslims would say he should have stood down as in protest, but the other argument is he has to stay in order to give the Muslims a voice within Labour. So what do you think he should or should not have done?
Well, I came here intending to say nothing at all about my Labour opponent because I'm fighting Keir Starmer here, really. It was not my intention to say anything about him. But as you ask, I've got a tweet on my phone that's just gone out from somebody that I don't know, drawing attention to some very interesting things. The first one is that in 2015, this gentleman, my opponent, described Jeremy Corbyn as a disaster and was therefore a part of an enemy within the Labour Party that helped to destroy Jeremy Corbyn's leadership and his chances of becoming Prime Minister. I also found, by the way, earlier today, a tweet of his, Azhar Ali's, of a picture of him shaking hands with me. He was very proud of it back in 2015. There he is. He tweets out him shaking my hands. And now he says I'm divisive and all these other insults. But actually, social media has been bad for him today. Turns out he was an advisor to Tony Blair at the time of the Iraq War.
At the height of the Iraq War.
When Tony Blair was killing 1 million Muslims in Iraq. That's not a good look. No. That's not a good look. He was involved in Prevent, which didn't prevent, which actually created more extremism and fanaticism in the country. So, for the Muslims, I don't think he's been a positive thing. And for me, someone who was kicked out of the Labour Party over the Iraq War, the fact that he was advising Blair at the very moment when Blair was committing this crime is fatal electorally for him amongst anybody who still remembers the Iraq War. And you'd be surprised how many people don't.
Yeah.
The Iraq War is burned into my soul. Yeah. But of course, there are lots of people voting on the 29th of this month. Weren't even born then.
Given your position, given the career that you've had and the point of you are in your career, would you say this is the last sort of roll of the dice standing?
I've been in politics a very long time. I'm 69 years old, which is quite a bit younger than Jeremy Corbyn and very much younger than Joe Biden and Donald Trump. So you can never say never, and you should never say never. But I'd be very happy to win this on the 29th and stay here as long as the people of Rochdale want me to stay here. But I have 6 children, by the grace of God. The youngest of them is 3 years old. So I have my hands full. I have a life. I have plenty of jobs, plenty of work. So, of course, if I'm not elected here, I'll continue to be in politics, but just not as the Member of Parliament for Rochdale.
Given that you said you're 69, and I remember Norman Finkelstein saying quite recently that he was tired, he was about to give up
And this
for his fight against Israel, for the people of Palestine, and then he couldn't do it. He couldn't give up. Do you think that a day would come where you'd give up?
No.
Do you ever thought about it, considering the fights that you've had, the losses that you've had?
No, I haven't, to be perfectly honest. I wake up each morning as determined as any morning in my whole life. I have a cause. I have a purpose. And I live a clean life. So I'm up like a spring in the morning, unlike those that are imbibing alcohol and overeating and all the other bad things. So no, I'm fit as a fiddle. I have no illnesses, take no pills, no medication. I was in a chemist the other day and the man said, why don't you get your prescription here? I said, by the grace of God, I have no prescriptions. So no, I'll never give up. Until, as long as God gives me breath, I'll be speaking out for the things I believe in.
What do you think you would have done different if you were the MP of Labour? Because there's quite a few leaders that stood down because they didn't like the idea of Labour supporting Israel.
Well, before you answer that question, I mean, do you have the desire to be reinstated?
No. If I was in Labour, I wouldn't be in Labour.
So you would have stood down because there's quite a few. Because I get Osman's argument there. Where he was saying, if I stand down,
stand
then
down
who's
is the wrong
making
word.
it?
No, stand down is the wrong word. The right word is, would you have resigned from the Labour Party? It doesn't mean you go into retirement. You continue to fight for what's right elsewhere, as an independent or as a member of another party, or whatever. No, I was expelled more than 20 years ago, and I was 36 years in the Labour Party. So that's 56 years. And so the day will come, God willing, if I live long enough, when I'll have been out of the Labour Party as long as I was
So this is
in
why
it.
I was saying, like,
Yeah.
you were expelled,
Yeah.
but you fought for the cause
Yeah.
and got expelled. So rather than like resigning,
Yeah.
you fight for the cause
And
get expelled
till they kick you. Yeah.
I, this was my.
That's what I
argument
did,
with-
and I
there's
stood.
quite a few good leaders.
Yeah.
There's one in Bradford. I forgot his name now. He's been running for 30 years. Very popular. And you think would it not be he's a good leader for the community? For him to resign,
would be a
it means
loss.
that someone else.
Yeah, I don't know who you're talking about, but the only good leader I know in Bradford was me. I fought, I was expelled, and I stood against Tony Blair. As a matter of fact, I said that Mr. Blair would rue the day. I remember rolling my arse. He will rue the day that he kicked me out, and he did in 2005 when I won a Labour seat in the East End of London. And he did again in the by-election in Bradford West when I won a landslide majority at that by-election. And I think they'll rue it again. But as years go by, that's less important to me, that point, because I no longer feel any connection to or affection for the Labour Party or anyone in it.
Yeah.
What about if Jeremy Corbyn was the Prime Minister? Would you have wanted to?
Yeah, but he's now not even a Labour MP. If my auntie had a beard, she'd be my uncle. There's another version of that, but I'm not saying.
But I like what you did. You fought till you got expelled rather than resign.
That's a badge of honour.
I think far more leaders, if they did that,
Yeah,
they would have been more respected.
I think so. I think so.
Labour would have a problem.
But you see, there's a lot of people
Yeah.
who, I said earlier, I don't want anything, and there's nothing I have they can take. There's a lot of people who do want something, even if it's just a title, even if it's the, cabinet member with responsibility for paper clips. They'd love to have that title, and they're not prepared to make any sacrifice for that. But I've never been like that. Let me tell you a story. When I was running for Mayor of London in 2016, I got off our open-top campaign bus, and I literally stepped right into a Jewish ex-serviceman dressed in his medals and so on, a hero that fought fascism in the Second World War. And he embraced me, and he said, if you had been with us, you would have been in Downing Street, never mind in the London mayor's office. And he might have had a point, who knows? But I said to him, I could do no other I couldn't have been with you. I would not have been able to be with you because my conscience would not have allowed me to be with you. So that's just the way I am. Here I stand, I can do no other, is the motto that I follow. And whether people vote for me or don't vote for me is less important to me than being able to look myself in the mirror and say, you said what you believed to be true and you stood up and fought for it, whatever the cost.
And there was a tweet shared by Dili Hussain today that one of the IDF members has returned to the UK after having fought in Gaza. And he's a lecturer in Leeds University.
Incredible.
I mean, what do you
Shamima Begum had her passport taken away. She's in a camp in Syria. And yet someone can go and kill Palestinians in Gaza and come back and be a lecturer, come back and be a police officer, come back and be an air traffic controller or a bank manager. It is unbelievable. It is against the law to fight for a foreign army in Britain. Far from being prosecuted, these people are able to come back and slot right in before it's time for them to go back and kill some more. This is a spectacular example of the double standards that exist here between supporters of Israel and fighters for Israel. And imagine if someone went from here in Rochdale, went to Gaza to fight for the resistance there.
There's no
But
chance.
given the US has moved its embassy to Jerusalem, now it's, whenever you see behind them token, it says Embassy Jerusalem. Try to put into the minds of the people that
Exactly.
Jerusalem
It's part
is
of
the
Israel.
capital of Israel,
Yeah.
where it's not. So if you got the US doing tricks like that,
Yeah.
is there any surprise that the people from the UK, like you said, the lecturer could go and fight?
Except this, that people now see Israel in a different way than they did 130 days ago. Of course, there's still, the powerful people are all still 100% behind Israel. The media is still 100% behind Israel. But amongst the public,
Yeah.
there are more people now
Yeah.
see Israel in its true light, than have ever done before. So things like that don't work. Not only the US, but Argentina just yesterday moved its embassy.
Did they?
And the president converted to Judaism,
Yeah, he was on the
which
Wailing Wall.
Can you do that though?
might not actually be all that popular in Argentina, but that's what he did. And he went to kiss the Wailing Wall and so on. Good luck to him. I have nothing to say about his religion, but he might have told the Argentinian people he was going to do that before he got elected. The truth is, no matter how many tricks like that they play, they will never change the fact. The fact is that East Jerusalem is illegally occupied territory. That's the law. And they'll never change the law. They cannot change the law because Russia and China would veto any change in that law, and that is the law. So it will always be illegally occupied, however long they occupy it. You don't become the owner of something that you stole after a given number of years. You remain a thief. The property remains stolen property until it's returned to its rightful owner.
But they're just continuing to doing what they're doing with Netanyahu. Even with the ICJ case, winning that, they still...
They'll continue. I mean, the ICJ previously ruled that the West Bank wall should be removed. Yet they've
They
not
didn't remove
complied
it.
with
No,
that. No one sanctioned them.
No.
There's no international intervention.
That's right.
Netanyahu recently said that it'll probably be a couple of months till we win.
Till we stop. Yeah. But everybody knows that they're not going to have a complete victory. He's only saying that because when the war stops, his prime ministership stops.
That's a big
In fact, his liberty stops. He almost certainly goes to prison. So you've got a man in charge of Israel who has the greatest vested interest possible in keeping the war going. But I'm always keen to make clear that the problem is not Netanyahu. The problem is not even his party, the Likud. It's not even Ben Gvir and the other people even more extreme than Netanyahu. Most of the crimes against the Palestinian people were carried out under the so-called Labour Party. The Nakba took place under Labour. The illegal acquisition of the West Bank, East Jerusalem, Gaza, took place under Labour. Labour prime ministers committed these crimes. And the Likud merely rubbed the lipstick off. Labour was the lipstick on the pig in Israel. They've rubbed the lipstick off. Sure, it looks uglier, but it's the same crime.
Given what you said before, that the people are changing, even though the politics or the media may not change.
Yeah.
But always going back to the beginning, the Balfour Declaration, who was the actual British were behind that. And I think I've heard you say the only Jewish person in the cabinet was opposed
To it, yeah.
to the Balfour Declaration,
It was.
because that was anti-Semitic,
Yeah.
saying if you're born in the UK, you don't belong in the UK.
Yeah, you've got dual loyalties, yeah.
But given that, the backdrop of that, the Balfour Declaration was ingrained from the UK.
Sure.
Can you see the UK establishment going against what they created?
You couldn't have seen Imran Khan being swept back to power. That only happened because the people moved. And that's what we have to do here. We have to make the people move. And one of the ways of doing that is demonstrations. The other ways of doing it include boycott, divestment, sanctions. Other ways include elections, like the one here on the 29th. I can see it. There are things that you can't see until you can see them. There are things that come apparently out of the blue, in the way that water in a kettle turns to steam. You can't see it because you can't see in the kettle. But when it comes out as steam, that's because it heated to 100 degrees momentarily before the steam came. So there are things underway. There are forces unleashed and which move and shape. And until you see them, you can't see them. So yes, I do. I made many speeches in Parliament about the Balfour Declaration. I've made many times the point in Parliament that this disaster was authored here in this room. Not this room, the room with the green benches. And it's important to keep reminding them of that. And also, by the way, to keep reminding them of the second paragraph of the Balfour Declaration. People only ever remember the first. But the second paragraph says, "Nothing shall be done which will prejudice the rights of the existing population of Palestine." Well, that's a paragraph that has been wholeheartedly disregarded. And it's a contradiction to the first paragraph, of course. First paragraph granted, I always say this, look, in 1917 at the Balfour Declaration, one people promised a second people the land that belonged to a third people. Even in the standards of colonialism at that time, this was quite unprecedented. And for me, it's null and void. It's always been null and void. People say Israel has the right to exist and all that. Nobody has the right to exist. The USSR didn't have the right to exist and no longer exists. The German Democratic Republic had no right to exist and no longer exists. States are political formations, and in time they will change. There used to be a country called Czechoslovakia. Now it doesn't exist. There's no reason why we should enshrine the Zionist state of Israel with any special immunity from international law or from international politics. And one day, the day will come, in your day rather than mine, when boycott, divestment, sanctions, external pressure will have altered completely the state of Israel in the way that we did with apartheid South Africa Did apartheid South Africa have a right to exist? Of course it didn't. It existed until it didn't exist. And the same will be true of Zionism.
See Israel as a one-state Israel with both people as equals.
That's what I fight for. That's what I came into this struggle more than 50 years ago believing, and I believe it still.
One state.
Yes, one democratic state
Called
between
Israel.
the river and the sea. No, I think they should call it the Holy Land. If I was marketing for them, I'd say
That would be difficult to do, though, one state.
Well, is it any more difficult than what's happening now?
Two
They're
states
having-
at least, then it's governed by their own state. So
Well, bring this two states to me, and I'll let you know what I think of it.
The
But
thing is,
don't ask me to.
having-
It's just an idea
Yeah,
you've
yeah,
got of
no,
a two
but
state.
having been there, what I've seen, they would not allow it one state.
Well, but they're not allowing two states.
Yeah.
They're not allowing two states, but that's
Not on
more.
any state.
Well, we can.
And-
They're not allowing any state. See, this is the point. You're right, of course, it's very, very difficult. But when the Boers lost the struggle in South Africa, they asked Mandela, can we have a white state in what is known as the Orange Free State? Can that be a white state within South Africa? And Mandela said, we don't believe in white states or black states. We only believe in democratic states. One man, one woman, one vote. So call it Israel-Palestine, or take my advice and rebrand it as the Holy Land. You'll have tourists coming from all over the world.
Because I've having been to like West Bank, the Muslims, the way we're treated is unbelievable. You have to go a separate line. It's as if you're going in the airport just to go in.
That's apartheid.
It's apartheid.
Yeah, no, the way it is. This is what I'm saying.
It's
So
apartheid.
for me, it's difficult to see at one state
Yeah, but
without racism, without them having heavily.
But that can
influence.
change over time. They
Well,
will-
it changes.
Unless they have completely different leaders.
Yeah.
And
Leaders have to change.
well, they will, wouldn't they? If that change occurred, they would have completely different leaders.
and
I
they have
agree
to be
with you.
mixed leaders as well.
I agree with you that a democratic state called the Holy Land is very difficult to see. But it's no more difficult to see than this two-state solution. As I keep saying, bring it to me and show it to me. And I'll
But two
tell you
states
about
does seem a bit more.
I would say one.
You would say one.
I would say one.
one has the benefit of actually being a solution.
Yeah.
The two-state one isn't
That's been
a
on the
solution.
table.
Problem with
It's never
Tuesday
happened.
is
It's never happened.
It's never happened.
problem with Tuesday is where do you do the divides? You know, it's
But they've
That's why it can't be two states.
Well, the problem
because
is
even though if they go with
previously they said go back to the original borders.
but the thing is, it's everywhere.
if you're going to partition
Yeah,
Palestine, and I'm against it, I'm against partitioning any country.
yeah,
If you're going to partition Palestine, the only legitimate basis on which it can be done is the 1948 boundaries.
yeah.
They never
Because,
allow
but they would never allow it. They won't allow two states. They won't
Yeah,
allow
they would not allow
Gaza to elect its
Yeah.
own representative. They won't allow anything.
Yeah.
So why fight for something
Yeah.
that they won't allow anyway,
Yeah.
and which isn't a solution? That's my point.
That's the problem. Yeah.
But the Jewish voice, how strong do you think that is opposing the state of Israel?
Oh, this is one of the great characteristics of this period. In the United States in particular, but also in the United Kingdom, the number of young Jewish people on these marches demanding justice, demanding peace, opposing Zionism is one of the most dramatic developments, and one which could not have been foreseen even just a few years ago. Somehow, by God's grace, a whole new generation of young Jewish people is coming up that doesn't want to be associated with Israel at all.
Yeah, it helps with
And-
those
and the-
slanders.
Yeah.
And the
Anti-Semitic.
It does,
Yeah,
yeah.
narrative is changing.
Yeah.
I think social media plays a massive part as well.
Massive.
No, the boycott. How, like what you were saying about the people make difference. Like Jeremy Corbyn when he was campaigning, one line that always stuck by me was, "We are many, they are few."
That's right.
And if we can,
If
do
we
that
can
together-
unite the many, yeah.
yeah.
That's right.
So what you mentioned about independent if we have independent parties in every area, but the same party, then we become the majority.
Yeah, and as long as we're all facing the same direction, we
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
have to have absolute agreement
Yeah.
on everything.
everything, yeah.
And I think that's the future. I think it's going to happen. I think we're going to win here. I think the independents will win in East London, in Tower Hamlets, in Newham. Well, the independents have already won in Tower Hamlets. Lutfur Rahman is the overwhelming political leader there, even though they did everything they could to destroy him.
Bethnal Green's got independent candidate. as
Yeah,
well.
Akunji, the famous lawyer,
Yes.
Shamima Begum's
Yes, yes.
lawyer. In Newham, there will be at least one, maybe two, independent standing for MP. It will be true in Birmingham. I know that for a fact. And there will be other places too. And I think that's the future. The two main parties, two cheeks of the same backside, are actually hated by most people.
I think the older generation, it's almost as though they're none the wiser and they're just ticking. It's a tick box exercise almost. They go in there and they'll just tick
It's like
Labour.
a football team.
We need like a message
Yeah.
to be sent to them to
Yeah.
say, look, it's not.
Yeah.
They
Doesn't
want
have
that
to-
Yeah,
it's
you want to
Yeah.
base it on the policies, not just the party.
Yeah, exactly. Labour's not a religion.
No.
Yeah.
We don't need. We've already got a religion.
Yeah.
We
Why
don't.
don't you-
We don't need Labour
On that
to be a
subject-
second religion.
Yeah, on that subject, I wanted to ask you the question actually because there was rumours that you are now Muslim.
Well, God knows who's a Muslim. I don't. I
Could be
don't.
breaking news. I don't know.
God knows who's a Muslim. There are people who claim they're Muslims who don't act like it. There are people who act like it that don't claim they are. I mean,
So you don't want to answer
God,
that
God knows everything. The reality is we don't need another religion. Labour is not a religion. It's not even a football team.
Yeah.
If you're born, as I was, a Celtic supporter, you'll always support Celtic.
Yeah.
You will never change.
different,
You'll never
yeah.
support Rangers.
But when it comes
But
to
when it comes to politics,
yeah.
why would you vote for someone who's
You don't agree
involved in slaughtering
Yeah.
your relatives,
Yes. Yeah.
your co-religionists, your other human beings, never mind religion? Why would you vote for that?
Yeah.
Because it's what your grandfather always did? That's crazy. You know, Imran Khan his party didn't exist.
No.
When I was given the two highest civil awards in Pakistan in the 1980s, Hilali-Quaid-e-Azam, Hilali-Pakistan, Imran Khan's party didn't exist. And now it's won, been overthrown, and has won again
With the leader in jail.
with the leader in jail. So, you know, politics is, or ought to be, a dynamic business.
I've seen an interview of his. He was saying reason why the vote of no confidence was issued is because of America.
Without a doubt. The Cypher
They made a-
case,
they-
the Cypher case proves that.
Yeah. They did a statement saying if he's going to be there as
Yeah,
a leader,
it's going to be very difficult
then
for
we're
you.
not gonna
Yeah,
be.
yeah.
And then
Isn't
that
there
pressure.
something truth behind that? Like the guy called John Perkins, when I've heard of him,
Of course.
he went out tried to sell us debt to these poor countries, and if you were a party man,
Oh, I read this. Yeah.
World Bank, IMF, you were okay. As soon as you
Yeah.
go against them, like Allende
Exactly.
in South America.
In Chile.
No, this is a huge thing.
Exactly
America's
right.
done that,
He was-
even in
that-
Saudi.
that-
He was an economic hitman.
That's the book I
And
read.
yeah, and his job was to go around,
Yeah.
if necessary, hitting and knocking out people who didn't play ball. And that's one of the most important books that everyone should read.
Yeah.
Should read.
Yeah, Donald Trump mentioned it recently
Economic-
on
Did he?
economic hitman.
Confessions of a-
Confessions of a
Economic
Economic Hitman.
Hitman.
That's it. So Donald Trump, he mentioned recently, like the economic hitman, he spoke about Saudi Arabia because before they used to speak against Palestine, there was at one point where there was something with Palestine, and they said that we're not going to give you oil, and that was a huge thing at the time.
Well, it was in 1973, and the king who did it
He said that
and
famous line.
quadrupled the oil price
Yeah,
was then assassinated. Go figure.
But he said this famous line. They go, "We're gonna take you down or something." And he was like, "We're from the desert, and we can go back to the desert."
Yeah.
And then for you guys, and that's what's happened. These well-built countries now, they feel as though they can't get involved because they don't want to go backwards. They don't want to.
They don't want to go back to the desert.
No.
They don't want to get dragged in.
Well, these guys like the likes of the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, who arguably should be helping the fellow Arab people, they're actually not doing nothing. If anything, sometimes they go the opposite.
It's tragic,
It is. It's a shame.
disastrous.
Yeah, this scarf you're talking about, someone wore it to in the airport. They take it off
Take it off you in Saudi Arabia.
in Saudi Arabia, not in Palestine.
Well, look, Egypt should move its army tonight into Rafah. Rafah is one gate away from them, literally. Rafah is the gate from Egypt into Palestine, and they should occupy it tonight. 1.5 million people are in Rafah waiting to be massacred. They're surrounded completely by Israeli tanks and heavy
But what this
heavy
is,
artillery.
even the Egyptian army is influenced by America.
Yeah, actually, the Egyptian army is very similar to the Pakistan army.
Yeah, so
It is, in fact,
They say the wages is being
Corrupt.
given by. So if that's
It's-
the case, then you would never see that. You would never see Egyptian army get involved because
no, but once upon a time, long before you were alive, there was a man called Nasser, Colonel Nasser, who was a junior officer, and the king, the royal dictatorship of Egypt, was overthrown overnight by this young officers group. And we need another young officers group in Egypt and in Pakistan.
Like something, what is it, Bangladesh or Sri Lanka when they overthrew the army?
don't know about that. But there's been like that where
You need
like
the
in
people to rise up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then the army will come. You know, the Shah of Persia had the world's most fearsome secret police, the Savak. They were torturers, murderers, and they had a huge army. But when the people rose up in the Iranian Revolution, the army didn't have enough bullets to start shooting, and they didn't shoot because they knew that by the time their magazine was empty, the people would pull them apart. So, in the end, there will always be in the army patriotic people who will not fire upon their own people when their own people are roused in sufficient number.
One question I wanted to ask, this has been a popular one on a lot of the Muslims who are not voting, with the matter with Syria. So this is a question, I'm just going to read it out. Have you previously endorsed the actions of Bashar al-Assad, whose forces are responsible for the deaths of an estimated 300,000 civilians? Do you still stand by your support for him? And if yes, what is your rationale?
Ask Hamas, they're in Syria. Where is Hamas? Where is the Hamas leadership? They're in Syria, in Damascus, living on the support of Bashar al-Assad. So if Hamas can be in Damascus, be based in Damascus, have their headquarters in Damascus, I'm not really sure you should hold Syria against me. But in the middle of an emergency in Gaza, why are you fixated on that? If Hamas have turned the page with Syria, your correspondent should do so too.
Yeah, so they, for them, it was more about the trying to, okay, this is what we don't want to do is support our character if there's certain things that they're against.
I don't.
Other thing that
I don't support any Arab ruler, by the way, but I'll defend them against foreign overthrow, even MBS. If America invaded Saudi Arabia tomorrow to overthrow MBS, I'd be with MBS. I'm just against colonial countries overthrowing Arab governments. I'm against it.
And the other one was concentration camps in China. You believe that it's all a myth. And
China's a bigger issue. I support China because I want to have a multipolar world. And China is the emerging challenger to the United States, as, by the way, is India. And that's something that you're going to have to get used to. India is now externally on the side of the angels, not the devils.
But
They're
what-
behaving like devils inside.
What you mentioned about India, so there is like discrimination against the
I'm
Muslims
just
in
coming to
India.
that. I'm just
Yeah,
coming to that.
okay.
Internally, Modi governs like the devil. Even this Ram Mosque just the other week. But externally, India's in the BRICS. India's in the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. India is becoming a very, very powerful country, and we have to adjust our thinking about that role, that external role of India. Ditto Iran. I don't want the Iranian political system here. I'm not a Shiite. I'm not a Chinese communist. I'm not a communist of any kind. But China has its own system. And I cannot, never mind would not, I cannot influence the attitude of China to this or that political group that it has declared an enemy, as it has declared the East Turkestan Liberation Movement. It has declared it as an enemy. What can I do about that? I just defend China against foreign interference to weaken it and divide it. Now they say that you call them concentration camps. They call them re-education camps. I'm against re-education camps anywhere.
Yeah.
I don't believe in re-education camps, let alone concentration camps.
It's more to do with not that you were saying that it doesn't exist, but to me, it's like you mentioned about India. I've seen videos where they force them to. They'll beat them up at first, and then they'll force them to
Sure.
believe in their god.
Sure.
So if that exists in India,
Yeah.
you would think that also exists in China.
Well,
and they'll call it education camp.
Yeah, the Chinese leaders don't believe in God. I believe in God. That's
Yeah.
why I'm not a communist. And there's not much I can do to influence them. What I have an obligation to do is, well, let's continue your metaphor. Does that mean we support the breakup of India?
No.
I don't support the breakup of India.
No.
So if someone asks me,
Yeah.
support this or that separatist group in India, I will not do it. No matter how much I hate Modi. And I've been on the streets against Modi when he was 50 yards away inside 10 Downing Street, and then in the evening outside Wembley Stadium as he went in. But that doesn't mean I'm going to support
No,
a
it's not
breakaway.
supporting. It's more how the energy you show with Palestine and the
That's
way
my
you.
priority.
No, I understand.
My priority is not China.
No, I understand.
My
But
priority is Palestine
fighting
because
against
but
cruelty.
here's the point. I have a duty on Palestine that I don't have on China. I didn't do anything in China, but I did do something in Palestine. I'm British. The house that I was a member of for almost 30 years was the creator of the Palestinian disaster. My country is deeply involved in the oppression of the Palestinian people. That's why my energy goes there.
I think it's important you say the Palestinian people are not Muslims, because I think you might be saying because the Muslims in China, the Uyghurs.
No, it doesn't even need to be Muslims. To me, it's crimes against humanity. If I've seen, I was in Malaysia for a few months. What we see is like the Muslims are in charge in Malaysia, and the Chinese, they actually, even with some of the rulings, they give them less support. The way it is, and when I was speaking to some of the people in the Chinese people, they were like, "This is what makes them racist. They can't help it because if you're being discriminated, you would feel that way from a
Treated
young age."
second class, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Although
second
being
class,
second
third
class in Malaysia is a more comfortable place than being second class in many other
No, that's
other
true.
places. Racism
But-
exists
Yeah,
everywhere,
Yeah.
Anyways,
amongst every people.
I'm told we have very little time. I
Alas,
think,
yes.
We'll hear about your story behind your hat before you could give us a last message.
Yeah, well,
And you could end it as well. You could end it
yeah.
as well.
it is. People sometimes ask me, now they're used to it, but they used to ask me a lot, why are you wearing a hat indoors? Well, I was seriously assaulted by an Israeli wearing an Israeli army outfit in Goulburn Road in Notting Hill, in Ladbroke Grove in 2014. My youngest son had just been born. He was a babe in arms, in his mother's arms, and I was set upon by this individual who later got 2 years in prison. Not enough, 2 years in prison, but I was quite seriously assaulted and my head was damaged. I was hospitalised.
What did they do? Did they use a weapon?
Thank God, no. If he'd had a weapon, I'd now be dead, because he was on top of me, punching me in the face, and my head was banging on the ground and so on. So I was hospitalised. I had quite bad scarring on my head, and so I started to wear a hat, and I quite liked it. And when the scars largely, they're still there in part, but when the scars largely healed, I decided to continue wearing the hat because it became a kind of emblem. If they would allow me, but which they won't, if they'd allow me, that would be my party symbol on the ballot paper. Just a hat. No, I stopped the cigar. No, I stopped 8 years ago smoking cigars, but I do chew nicotine gum from morning till night. You may have seen I've got one in my coffee cup here. Alas, I'm afraid that's all I've got time for, because I've got another engagement.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed it.
Part 2.
Part 2, I promise. Part 2 after the part T.
Party
Yes.
as well.
Yeah.
Don't forget the party.
Thank you very much for joining us, and be sure to subscribe, like and comment on our page. Thank you very much, George.
Thank you.